Hello and welcome to the 50-cent tour of Monday, August 5th, 2013. I hope you had a wonderful weekend, and I hope you will find it in your hearts to quickly find a seat on the Liberty Bus, and we will begin our tour of the day. We don't have a lot of sights to look at today, but there's one thing that I think a couple things that deserve a little bit more in-depth attention. First of all, I was looking for something else on InfoWars, and I saw this, and Toddler dies in CPS captivity after being taken from marijuana-smoking parents. Take care of your kids. I'm not saying don't smoke marijuana, but just be aware. Be aware. This is just shocking, disappointing. It's an indescribable tragedy, really, and it kind of, last week I mentioned the Bible verse, the righteous man has regard for the life of his beast, but the mercy of the wicked is cruel. If these people believe they're being merciful, there's this tremendous cruelty, and by tremendous I mean extensive and large. And I didn't address this last week, but late in the week last week, a story that was somewhat similar, that some kind of an animal shelter had adopted a baby deer whose mother was not around, and the deer, the fawn, was deserted, so they were caring for it until they could transfer it somewhere. Well, a neighbor reported them for having a wild animal, and the authorities came and killed the fawn. Now, it's just the result here, like this is contrary to the stated purpose. It's child protection. And they failed miserably, completely, utterly to protect this child. And these government agencies are not accomplishing their stated purpose. Why do we have them? Why do we support them? Why do we pay for them? The FDA and the Department of Agriculture, they're meant to protect us from dangerous drugs and food, when our food is extremely dangerous because of GMOs, and all you have to do to know how dangerous the drugs are is watch commercials for them on television when their side effects are enumerated. It's astonishing. Benghazi bombshell. Insiders confirm CIA sent missiles to FSA rebels. Well, of course, Alex is saying this morning or yesterday, that he had opened up this story some time ago, and he did, of course. But now that it's being widely reported, please, God, let it stir people up to the point where they are not willing to support this kind of action anymore. And we lawfully in this country, we have government of the people, by the people, for the people. And for us to say, you aren't of us, by us, and for us anymore, what's up with that? Is not only acceptable, not only lawful, but it's our obligation. So these people are, the CIA sent missiles to FSA rebels, which equates to sending missiles to Al-Qaeda. And when are we going to get a clue? I hope that as things like this come out, people don't shrug it off. They try to acclimate people to this kind of information gradually, so that when finally the big bomb drops and it's all out, everybody's tired of it and they already thought they knew everything. Well, let's let's surprise them and not stop thinking. Let's keep thinking, keep talking about this, and keep letting people know why this is such a problem. On one hand, they want us to be afraid of Al-Qaeda. On the other hand, they're supporting them. They want to use Al-Qaeda as an excuse to treat us like prisoners. And I pray to God in Jesus' name that people will wake up to this and stop allowing it to continue. Now, ZapPoofness update. I will tell you that I read this every week. I virtually never mention it because it's very subjective information. Is it true? Is it not true? Pretty hard to tell. But in light of the Benghazi stuff, as more and more comes out, if enough people are aware and raise an objection, we will be set free from the oppression and tyranny under which we currently find ourselves. And this information is about a global reset and financial release. And take it with a grain of salt. I do believe that these sorts of things are going to be happening. Is it going to happen, now, today? I don't know when it's going to happen. But, and that's why I think it's important not to focus on dates and in our minds say, okay, I can make it until this long, because then we get there and we might be discouraged. I really believe we have to have the long-term idea that we're in this for the long haul, and we don't want to become weary in doing good and give up too early. One thing that is very important to all of us right now: senators ponder if bloggers deserve First Amendment protection. The Senate continues to debate a national law to protect journalists from protecting their sources. Two senators believe unpaid bloggers and websites like WikiLeaks shouldn't get extended First Amendment protections. That's interesting, extended First Amendment protections. All we need is First Amendment protections, right? I mean, if somebody says something that they don't want to be put in jail for saying what they've said. And whether things are true or not that appear in the press, that is for everybody to decide for themselves as they read things. If the information is controlled on any level, then first of all, you don't have First Amendment rights. And second of all, you're just inviting control. The only way to not have control is to not have control. We all need to be able to say, write, and put in videos, whatever, the truth as we perceive it. And man, there'd be losing a lot if we lost bloggers' ability to freely pass along information. Now, this information, again, it's just like I don't typically refer to poof zap updates, and I don't typically refer to catastrophic prediction websites or updates, because I think it's counterproductive. But I do want to just address this because I think there's real potential for this to happen. And we had that EMP, that event, that solar event that we barely missed last week. And, one of those events, in theory, could take out all of the electronics on the earth. And I believe it's important for us to be aware of that. And I believe it's important for us to some extent, be prepared. And I was actually even kind of thinking that, because last week I mentioned I believe that God spared us from the event that could have happened last week. But at some point, I think it might be God's grace in our lives if something like this did happen, because it would kind of allow us to hit the reset button. And third world nations who are not heavily dependent on electronics the way we are, they would survive it without too much trouble. We, because we are so dependent on technology, would have some issues, but not issues that can't be overcome, because this idea of living with electronics it's only been, I don't know, maybe the last 100 years, maybe 150 years. Most of these electronics are new within since the late 80s, early 90s. Even computers. Very few people worked with computers in the late 70s, early 80s. So we definitely can live without them, but it would take some conscious effort to prepare to live without them. And I certainly wouldn't expect government to do that, because they have other objectives right now. But we can certainly do it for ourselves. And it's just the basics of a source of water, which you have if you have a natural body of water nearby, and you have a really good gravity-fed filter like a Berkey or something. Source of water, a way to heat in the winter if you have a wood-burning stove. You can stock up on some wood. Have a way to eat. Certainly a garden is ideal, but a store of canned goods or MREs or whatever. And just some thought given to, and I'm not talking about being a paranoid, what people always think of as a prepper, but I think it's FEMA that recommends that families have a 2-month supply of food and essentials in the event of an earthquake. Or there's all kinds of things that can that are unforeseeable that can happen to change the supply lines, and to make it more difficult to obtain essentials. So certainly doesn't hurt to give a little thought to that. And just the idea of living, not being dependent on technology, or I think that there's probably a happy medium where we are independent enough. We have our own gardens, our own maybe koi ponds, a place where we can raise protein and vegetables, like with aquaponics. We can be independent, and then if we have some technology for entertainment, to enrich our lives, to make things easier, that's great. But if we are able to live independent of technology, we will just be a whole lot better off. And it doesn't have to be a hardship. This is a website that has a story about a family living starting in the year 1910 on a farm, and just what their lifestyle was like. Certainly they weren't deprived. They lived a very rich life, and they had fabulous food and great support system. And we've lost touch with so much that historically has been sustaining for people. And like I said, I think that if we were prepared, a blast that would shut off all the electronics for 6 months might be a blessing in disguise. Today's tour is a presentation of She Who Will Walk in the Dark Productions, and we thank you for joining with us for today's tour. The dawn is coming, and yeah, maybe it'll come with some solar flares, but that's okay. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Hoping that you will love one another, take care, and insist on liberty.